Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 2nd of October 2025 in the Oakham County Buildings in Stafford. I'd like to remind everybody present that this meeting will be broadcast live on the internet and will be available for repeated viewing for 12 months. If you are seated in this room, you are deemed to be consenting to be filmed, and any contributions to the meeting will be recorded and broadcast. I'd just like to say it's very nice to see so many people here taking an interest. Going over to our clerk, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've received apologies from Councillors Bob Eggington, Mark Nixon and Nicholas Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest? There being no declarations made, I will now sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of June. So our first application. So before we go into the first application, for clarity, can I share that lots of people here today, there are lots of people here today, and we're keen to stick to the agenda. There is a process for people who have registered to speak, and there is a traffic light system which will allow for 5 minutes of speaking before an alarm will make a beep to indicate the end of the 5 minutes. There are no planned fire drills scheduled today. Should there be a fire alarm, please evacuate the building via your nearest exit and follow the county staff. Basically, just follow me because I'll be on the way out. So the first application is an application by Inwaste Hixon Limited at the land at Hixon Industrial Estate, Church Lane, Hixon. There is a request for application for change of use of an existing building from B2 to B8 use for a clinical waste treatment facility, and I'll now pass over to the case officer.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. As the Chairman's indicated, planning permission is sought for a clinical waste incinerator at Hixon. This report is different to the applications that have previously been considered at the Planning Committee and also later on in this meeting. I'll now go on to explain the reasons for that slight difference. The applicant has submitted an appeal to the Planning Inspectorate relating to the failure of the County Council to make a decision on this planning application within the statutory period or the agreed extended period. The reasons for this is set out in the report in Appendix 3. The County Council sought additional information from the applicant, had to go through an election and by-election where public consultation was prohibited, and all new members of the Planning Committee had to undergo induction training before their first meeting, as well as additional training on minerals and waste planning matters. On the 18th of August, the County Council were advised by the applicant they were considering an appeal. On the 19th of August, the applicant's agent was informed by myself that the application will be determined at this committee. The following day, the appeal was submitted. Members should be aware that a statement of case and a draft statement of common ground have been submitted. The County Council has not agreed to the contents of these documents prior to the submission by the applicant and the appellant. The Planning Inspectorate will now make the final decision on this application using a written representation procedure. To support it in making a decision, the Inspectorate needs an indication of the County Council's committee decision. The appeal is a separate matter. The report requests members consider whether they would have agreed with the recommendation in the report had the County Council been able to determine the application. Moving on to the general location before going on to the proposal itself. Hixon Industrial Estate is to the southwest of the village of Hixon, and it's shown on the slide with the star there. Hixon is approximately 12 kilometres by road to the east of Stafford. Hixon is located, as I say, in the Red Star. The industrial estate is one of the recognised industrial estates that's been included in the Stafford Borough Council local plan. This slide has been included to provide details of the site and its surroundings. The proposed location is shown on both of the images in red, in the Red Star, and St Peter's Primary School is located to the north of the site and is shown on the blue. So we've got the proposal there, and then we've got St Peter's Primary School. The site is approximately 80 metres from the closest part of the school playing fields and approximately 170 metres from the school building. And obviously to the north is Hixon. The nearest residential properties are approximately 150 metres to the southeast, with further properties approximately 280 metres to the north. King Silver Refinery, an aluminium refinery business, is operated by JBMI Group Limited and is located to the northwest of the facility and has been indicated as a potential commercial partner. So that's just there on the slide. This plan shows the planning application boundary in red and the access to the proposal from Church Lane. Church Lane has a weight restriction of 7.5 tonnes for vehicles, except for access. The plan also shows the locations of the different buildings for the clinical waste facility. So you've got the main building, which the incinerator will be housed. You have a separate building, which is a bin store, and then there's a proposal roughly there for a welfare building, which isn't an existing building, which is a porter cabin type building that's been proposed. So I've got photographs showing the existing building. This building was granted permission by Stafford Borough Council for storage. And the photo on the right shows the existing use of the building that was submitted with the planning application statement. The site elevations slide shows the existing building. A flue stack measuring approximately 15 metres from the existing ground level would be required, which is an increase on 3 metres above the existing building's roof line. So that will be just located there on the elevations. Moving on to the proposal, details are included in pages 13 to 20 of the report, and the key elements are included in the table on page 13 and 14. The facility was processed 3,504 tonnes per annum of clinical, medical and hazardous wastes. 9.6 tonnes of waste per day would be brought to the site. The site would operate on a continuous basis. Delivery of wastes and the export of residue would be restricted, as set out on the slide there with the times for each sort of day. The facility has been designed to process approximately 0.4 tonnes an hour, which would require approximately 2 to 3 vehicles deliveries per day. UBH Group Limited would provide staff, training and expertise to assist the applicant. The applicant has explained that the facility would receive hazardous and clinical waste, which is required by law to be disposed through high treatment incineration in a highly controlled and secure manner. The applicant has explained that the site has been chosen due to the potential to provide heat and power directly to neighbouring industrial sites. The applicant has also identified a national and regional need for a clinical and hazardous waste treatment capacity and has stated that Hixon, the facility at Hixon would provide a regional capacity, would reduce waste miles associated with this type of waste and recover all available energy as heat. The applicant states that the nearest comparable facility is over 2 hours drive away. Objections have been received from the Hixon Parish Council and also Stowe by Chartley Parish Council. The Parish Council's objections are summarised in paragraphs 60 and 61 of the report. Objections include health risks, the proximity of the proposal to the primary school and also residential properties and business properties. Emissions from the flue, the status of the applicant and the lack of information about the source of the waste. The local Member of Parliament, Sir Gavin Williamson, has also opposed the application. A petition signed by 92 residents was also submitted by the MP, which also opposes the application and requests that the County Council rejects the application. Representations have been received from residents, including 154 objections by letter and email, in addition to 196 standard objection cards. Since the publication of the report, and as of the 1st of October, an additional letter and 58 standard objection cards have also been received. The slide details the reasons for the objections, and these are included in paragraph 71 of the report. These relate to the impact on Hixon and the wider area, the proximity to the primary school and residential properties, emissions, noise, odour, water pollution, dust and light pollution, the impact on local habitats and the impact on the road network. The responses from consultees are detailed in pages 23 to 31 of the report and are also considered in the observation section. No observations have been raised by technical teams as shown on the slide. These include the County Council's Environmental Advice Team, Highways Authority, Noise Engineer, the Flood Risk Management Team, Stafford Borough Council Planning and Environmental Health, the Environment Agency and Natural England. The key considerations are covered in the report on pages 33 to 65. In respect of the site-specific development plan consideration, clinical waste treatment is a proven for technology. The facility at Hixon would be located in an existing building on a recognised industrial estate alongside B2, B8 uses, would create 20 jobs and would generate heat for the adjacent units. The applicant would partner with UBH Group, which would provide staff and training. The site would be controlled by a permit issued by the Stafford Borough Council. This is due to the proposed throughput. No technical statutory consultees have objected to the proposed technology, which would serve a regional need. Given the responses from technical statutory consultees, it is reasonable to conclude that subject to conditions and informatives, the proposed development would not give rise to any material harmful impacts. It is, however, necessary to consider our waste local plan policies and the principle of the development and the suitability of the site. As stated by the applicant, the facility at Hixon would serve a regional need, would divert waste away from landfill managing waste higher up the waste hierarchy. A regional waste facility is a facility dependent on drawing waste from beyond the immediate surrounding community and from more than one waste planning authority, i.e. from areas outside Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. The waste local plan policy requires the proposals to demonstrate that waste is being dealt with as close as possible to where it arises, reducing the need to transport waste at great distances. The key diagram included on this slide illustrates the key aspects of the spatial strategy in the waste local plan in terms of the locational approach for new and enhanced waste management facilities. Consideration needs to be given to whether the type of facility proposed at Hixon meets the locational approach set out in the strategy and in policy 2 for broad locations for new waste facilities. Proposals of local or sub-regional scale will be supported provided they are located in or close to the North Staffordshire conurbation or the large settlements. The North Staffordshire conurbation is shown on the slide with the red circle on the diagram, so you've got the North Staffordshire conurbation. The large settlements are shown in the blue circles, so we have Stafford there. Hixon is located on the slide with a red star and is outside of these locations, so we have Hixon there. Waste Local Plan Policy 2.3D specifically requires proposals of a regional and national scale to demonstrate how they would meet the siting locational criteria shown on the slide. It is considered that the applicant has not provided evidence to demonstrate the proposal meets the locational criteria. The applicant has not provided sufficient evidence to justify locating a regional scale clinical waste treatment facility on a rural industrial estate. The applicant has not demonstrated that the facility is sustainably located within the waste supply area to minimise transport impacts both in and outside of the county. The applicant has not demonstrated that the site selection process has considered viable, sustainable alternatives, including sites within and outside the plan area, or demonstrated that the site is the most suitable. The applicant has also not demonstrated that the clinical waste facility will be of a scale and size which is proportional and appropriate to the area of Hixon. The location of this facility on Hixon Industrial Estate has been chosen by the applicant due to the potential to provide low carbon, recovered heat and power directly to neighbouring industrial sites. On balance, it is considered that the more evidence is required from the applicant to adequately address the requirements of Waste Local Plan Policy 2.3. It's reasonable to conclude that the proposed development does not accord with the Waste Local Plan including the spatial strategy and does not represent sustainable development. And there are no clear and convincing reasons to indicate that the application for planning permission should be permitted. It is also considered that the material planning objections outweigh the material planning benefits associated with the development. The recommendation on the slide is that members of the committee confirm that had the County Council been able to determine the application, planning permission would have been refused for the following reasons. The applicant has failed to demonstrate how the proposal meets the spatial strategy shown on the policy map in the Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Joint Waste Local Plan in terms of the broad locations for new and enhanced waste management facilities and the siting locational criteria set out in Policy 2.3 of the Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent Waste Local Plan. It is therefore considered that the material planning objections outweigh any material planning benefit associated with the development, and as such the proposals do not represent sustainable development. As the applicant has submitted an appeal to the Planning Inspectorate, this slide details the next steps currently set out in the appeal process. By the 22nd of October, the County Council must submit a statement of case which will include the decision made at this committee on the planning application. Also by this date, all interested parties, including residents, should make comments directly to the Planning Inspectorate. Any comments received after this date will not be considered by the Planning Inspectorate. By the 5th of November, the applicant makes final comments on the County Council statement of case. The appellant and the County Council can make comments on the representations received by the Planning Inspectorate. Thank you, Chairman. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, David. Now we have a speaker, Amelia Garner. Are you here?
Chair, members of the Planning Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Amelia Garner and I live in Hixon, and I'm a mother to a child at St Peter's Primary School, a school whose playing field sits just 80 metres from the site that is proposed for this clinical waste incinerator. I speak today not just as a parent, but on behalf of our village, a community that has come together supported by our local MP to say that you must formalise a position that your planning officer has already correctly reached and refused this application. 80 metres is not a safe distance, it's a direct exposure zone. This application places 230 children, some as young as 2 at the nursery, at daily risk. As the school points out in their response, many children already live with asthma or respiratory conditions. Even small increases in nitrogen dioxide or particulate matter can have lifelong consequences, as I'm sure you're aware. The applicant's own report calls the impact slightly adverse, but when it comes to our children's health on the line, slightly adverse is simply unacceptable. The applicants claim there is no significant risk, but that phrase admits there is some risk. And when it comes to our children, any risk is too much. And who is asking you to take this risk? Inwaste, Hixon Limited, a company with no proven track record and zero operational history. Their registered address is a property owned by King Silver Property Company, whose directors and shareholders also run the neighbouring JBMI refinery. That overlap raises serious questions about transparency and independence. We're told the community was consulted. We were not. The school was emailed during the summer holidays when the teachers were not there. Most residents received nothing, no event, no explanation, no dialogue. Just weeks ago, hundreds marched through the village in protest, joined by our MP, Sir Gavin Williamson, to show exactly where we stand. We are grateful to have the backing of Sir Gavin Williamson, and he has joined us today to firmly demonstrate his support. So thank you for coming. Technically, the flaws in the application are serious. The flue is only 15 metres high, far shorter than similar facilities. Prevailing winds would carry admissions directly over our school and our homes. The air quality modelling uses data from towns 45 kilometres away. It ignores the pollution already affecting our village from JBMI and other industry units. The applicant admits they use national air quality data from 2018, not local monitoring. They claim it accounts for JBMI emissions, but that's based on broad averages, not the reality of what our children breathe every day already. Even so, their modelling predicts level of arsenic, chromium-6, dioxins and purines, chemicals known to cause cancer and other harm, rising well above background levels. These substances do not just vanish, they accumulate in our soil, in our food and in our children's bodies. Beyond the school, the site borders a protected salt marsh, one of the last in the UK, a fragile ecosystem already under pressure. Meadowfields Care Home, home to vulnerable elderly residents, is also within metres of the facility. The proposal would also see a sharp increase in HGV traffic through our village, sharing the roads that our children use to get to school, raising safety concerns and further degrading our air quality. The application is based on assumptions, not evidence. It offers risk, not reassurance. This is not a proven facility, it is an untested one. Our children's health cannot depend on someone learning on the job. So I ask you directly, would you send your child or your grandchild to a school next to a clinical waste incinerator? As David Bray's report concluded, this proposal is simply in the wrong place. There is no need for it to be sited so close to a primary school. Location matters, and this location is unacceptable. We are not anti-progress, we're pro-safety, pro-health and pro-community. Members, you have the power to act. Please refuse this application. Protect our school, protect our village, and protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you for that submission. Do we have speaker number 2, Councillor Brendan McCowan?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. My name is Brendan McKeown and I am Chairman of Hixon Parish Council. Hixon Parish Council considered this application well over a year ago and resolved to object to it and encouraged people from the village to also object, which they did, as Amelia said, and in the report in their hundreds. I'm very pleased that the recommendation before you is to refuse this application, or to say you would have refused it had it come here earlier. But there are other reasons to be concerned. The original planning application, as the slide said, was classed as sui generis. I'm not sure if I got that right, but it's Latin for without comparison, of its own kind, which suggests to me and to many villagers that this process is untried and untested. A hazardous clinical waste incinerator, untried and untested, so close to a primary school. And what about the applicant? We know that the registered address is above a restaurant overlooking Milford Common. It's an unoccupied flat, and there's no evidence that the company there, under its various names, has ever traded or submitted accounts to Companies House. So a shadowy company with no previous experience in operating a hazardous clinical waste incinerator just a stone's throw away from a primary school. It doesn't give you a great deal of confidence. Despite this, the company alleges that it is an established waste business based in Stafford who specialise in clinical waste. That's clearly not true. But we are informed now that it's not that company in Brockton, it's going to be another company somewhere else that will operate it. How many more versions do we need to have? There are more red herrings in this application than there are in an episode of Death in Paradise. You're supposed to laugh at that one. Giving approval to operate this plant by inexperienced people is like handing over keys to a heavy goods vehicle to someone who's never taken a driving test. And this mysterious 3,504 tonnes of hazardous waste to be treated each year over 365 days comes in at a precise 9.6 tonnes per day. Conveniently, just under the 10 tonnes per day that would be required for it to come under the control and auspices of the Environment Agency. Instead, it will be looked at, scrutinised by Stafford Borough Council. But they will only look at the flues, the emissions from the flue. They won't be looking at the vermin that will be running around in that storage area. Vermin who will scratch into those plastic bags, the contents of which will spill out, and the vermin will spread that beyond the boundary of the site. Anatomical waste and clinical waste contains swabs, dressings, syringes, other sharps, bits of bodies, identifiable human organs. It has to be processed, it has to be stored, collected, transported, handled very carefully throughout its journey. And if you don't do it properly, then you're exposing the area to infection. Infection that will be spread by vermin and by whatever might come out of the top. Thank you. The only reason why this application is going to an appeal is because the applicant has never submitted the correct information to officers here to be able to come to a resolution for you to decide as a planning committee. That's the only reason why it's going to an appeal. And William Shakespeare came up with a great word that would summarize all of this application. Hoodwink. Hoodwink. Being hoodwinked is to be covered, your eyes closed against what's really happening. So, members, I ask you to support the officer recommendation to refuse this application, or say you would have done it, so that people of Hixon can quite literally breathe again. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Councillor McCarran for that very concise report. Do we have speaker number 3, a supporter for the application, Dudley Saunders via Teams?
Hiya. Good morning, Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. My name is Dudley Saunders and I'm the planning agent for Inwaste Hixon Limited. We are seeking planning consent for a change of use to enable the operation of a clinical waste hazardous incinerator on land at Hixon Industrial Estate. The proposed facility would process up to 3,504 tonnes per annum, equivalent to 9.6 tonnes per day, of clinical and hazardous wastes. These wastes are required by law to be disposed of through high temperature incineration in a highly controlled and secure manner. The chosen site sits immediately adjacent to existing industrial processes, including the secondary aluminium refinery operated by JBMI Limited, CAT International and Selwood Pumps. The site was selected not only for its established industrial context, but also because it presents a unique opportunity to directly export low carbon heat and power to neighbouring facilities, reducing reliance on fossil fuels and supporting the wider decarbonisation of industry. This proposal will bring around 20 new jobs to the area, 18 operational and 2 office-based. This is supported by UBH Group Limited, who are experienced operators in the clinical waste sector and will provide staff training and expertise. The applicant has identified a clear national and regional need for new clinical and hazardous waste treatment capacity, driven by several factors. An existing shortfall of high temperature incineration plants, leading to limited competition and rising costs, long-term underinvestment in UK facilities, many of which cannot meet the new industrial emissions directive standards without substantial upgrades, a growing reliance on exporting materials overseas for treatment, which is both uncertain and incredibly unsustainable, the demographic reality of an aging population generating higher clinical waste arisings. Currently, the nearest comparable facility is more than 2 hours drive away, meaning the majority of local waste must be transported long distances. Approving this application would therefore provide vital regional treatment capacity, reduce waste miles by treating materials close to source, and recover and reuse energy in the form of low carbon heat supplied directly to local industry. Crucially, the statutory consultees have all confirmed that the environmental impacts of this proposal are acceptable. This includes detailed assessments of air quality, noise, transport, ecology, and human health. Of particular note, that this is confirmation regarding air quality impacts to the nearby primary school, an understandably sensitive receptor. The assessments demonstrate that the facility will operate well within the strict regulatory limits, ensuring there is no unacceptable impact on children's health, the local community, or the wider environment. In summary, this is a carefully considered proposal which delivers on 3 key fronts. It addresses a nationally recognised shortfall in clinical waste treatment, supports the decarbonisation of local industry, and provides secure, skilled employment locally, while doing so in a way that statutory consultees have confirmed is acceptable. We respectfully ask for your support today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a report by Dudley Saunders. Do we have any other speakers?
No, Chair, that's everything for this item. Thank you.
So, you've heard the objectors, you've heard the supporters. Are there any comments from members in the room? Over to you, Neil Parton.
Good morning, everyone. I've got a few questions, that I think should be answered by the company. What is the risk to health and environment if there was a fire due to leakage into the water system and into the air? Would there be contingencies put in place so that if that happened, that nothing leaks into the air or into the water system? And why they're not being so open about what's going to be incinerated there? I think we should ask want more information about what's being incinerated, and if they can provide that information. And as compensation, would the village get cheaper electric bills due to being so close to the factory? And the thing is as well, is there's other places outside the village that can be built on instead of inside the village. I think it's the wrong side completely. So can we have those answered, please?
Thank you very much from Councillor Parton there. I'm going to hand over to David, who's the case officer, to see if he can answer that. So you have one question on fire, one question on the openness, and one question on are the local residents going to benefit from cheap electric?
In terms of the fire risk, we did consult the Staffordshire Fire and Rescue. They had no objections. I think in terms of the emissions, I think that probably would be part of the permit that would be required by the environmental health team at Stafford Borough. I don't think I can really comment on the openness in terms of the information that's been submitted by the applicant or the pre-application consultations that were undertaken. That's sort of separate to planning and also not a material planning consideration. Cheaper electricity, there's no information other than they would provide electricity to the adjoining business units, and I think the information that was submitted doesn't specifically refer to any contracts that are in place. There's more potential, but the agent might be able to provide more clarification concerning that matter. And in terms of the point that Councillor Parter makes in terms of the location, there would be alternative locations. I went through in the slide about suitable locations for sub-regional and sub-regional facilities. So yes, there would be potential for the sites in the county, subject to them going through the proper assessment in terms of the locational policy, which I referred to, policy 2.3.
Thank you very much for that. So, Councillor Parson, does that answer your questions?
Yeah, part of it, but I still think that we should be more concerned about the leakage when the fire brigade need to either put the water out, put the fire out, and what is used on the fires, because I think there is potential of all the chemicals washing into the water system. So I think we should look at that more closely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that supplemental. Did you want to say something, David?
Yeah. I've just looked at the response from the fire service, and they refer the applicant to Waste Industry Safety and Health Forum, reducing health risks at waste management sites, which, according to the information that was provided by the fire service, has been designed to reduce the likelihood and frequency of fires at solid waste management facilities, and where fires do occur, reduce potential safety, health, environmental, property damage and business interruption impacts.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Joe, does our supporter of the application, Mr. Saunders, does he want to say a few words? Okay, so Dudley, are you there?
Hiya. Yeah.
Hi, so we've had a question about fire. Do you have any specific
I can address that.
measures in place to mitigate water that's being used to suppress a fire going into, say, the water course?
Yeah, so the drainage will be a closed system, so any fire water used on site will not then go into the surface water discharge. So it will be a fully contained system. So in the case of a fire, you wouldn't have contaminants leaking into the nearby surface water catchment at all. It would be completely contained.
Okay, thank you for that. Do you have a volume that you would be able to contain? Can you give us that figure today?
I can't give you that figure today, but within the environmental permit, there has to be a full fire prevention plan and fire risk assessment, which details all of that. It details the amount of water required for the material and for the space, and yeah, all of that would be considered by Stafford environmental health team.
Okay, thank you. So the second point that was raised by Councillor Paxson was the openness of the company and the address being over not being used. I mean, how would you answer that question?
Sorry, it was about the openness of the waste used, correct?
I think it was the openness of the registration of the company.
Yeah, it's the what's being incinerated in the incinerator, because if there is a fire, that could leak into the air system as well. What's in place, so that if there is any fire, that the air pollution, and we need to know what's being burned for the air quality and everything.
Okay.
Through the stack, that's from the incinerator. So anything that's combusted through there is already being combusted. In terms of other air quality emissions of a fire, that would be shut down, and there would be fire measures in place to restrict that happening. The exact throughput of the facility and the different feedstocks that will come in has been detailed, but the amounts of these would be determined potentially on an annual basis, depending on what's available. In other facilities, it's common for this to be available for the public to assess. So that could be something that could be set up.
Okay, we got some more evidence from one of our officers.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to remind members that the focus of the planning system should be on whether the development itself is an acceptable use of the land and the impacts of those uses, rather than any control processes, health and safety issues or emissions themselves, where these are subject to approval under other regimes. So the site, if granted planning permission, would require a permit either from Stafford Borough Environmental Health or from the Environment Agency, and they control the processes. We're looking at the acceptability of that piece of land for that proposed use. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Yes, Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that Staffordshire definitely needs a facility like this, because I don't think any of us have ever gone through life or will go through life without needing our waste disposed of from the hospital or from wherever. However, I think it's also equally clear that this company is not the company to do it, because, like I say, they don't sound like a fit and proper outfit to me. So that's all I've got to say on the matter.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mackenzie. Has anybody else anything? Yes, Councillor Lakin.
The planning process, it's gone to appeal. I think the reason has been already alluded to by the parish council. Can you just confirm that it's as a result of the applicant that there has been this delay and it has gone to appeal as a result of that, or is it something that the council have not done that has sent it to appeal?
Okay, I'll have to hand back over to David for that answer.
It's a combination. We had asked for more information due to the elections. We couldn't take this to the planning committee, but then there's subsequent training, which meant that delays with the committees. So, as I said, we'd asked for the information. There were delays with the provision. Well, some of the information hasn't been provided. The last information, which was air quality, was sent to the environmental health. Unfortunately, their response was after the date of one of the committee reports finalisation time, so that couldn't go to that committee, and then elections were taking place. So we're not able to take applications to planning committees under those scenarios.
Does that answer your question? Do you think we should go back to Dudley Saunders and ask him about the process? And no? Okay, that's fine. Do we have any other speakers? No? You'd like to say a few words? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chair. David, I'd like to say thank you as well for quite a comprehensive report and recommendations. For me, it can be summarised quite simply by, would you, in all good conscience, want this next to the school where your kids and your grandkids go? And when we talk about suitability, for me, it's an absolute no. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Beardmore.
I'd just like to say I won't be supporting this today. For me, the amount of material that's coming in there on the heavy goods that are listed in there, and the amount that's been processed throughout a day leaves it open to a lot of storage, which is really what I wouldn't imagine any of us would want. So I won't be supporting this today.
Thank you very much. Have we any... Councillor Chapman. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Officer for a comprehensive report and to those that have spoken so far. I won't be supporting this. I'm a grandmother, I have children, I was in education for 40 years, and quite frankly, with regard to the applicant, the clinical waste needs to be done, but this is the wrong site, and I certainly won't be supporting it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's two main concerns with this are, whilst the applicant has tried to address the potential physical safety risks of the site, although as the residents have raised it, they still highlight that there'll still be a slight adverse effect. There's been no consideration for the mental health of nearby residents and school users. As it was says, you know, there's kids at the school with asthma and other kind of respiratory issues, and therefore this constant thing on the brain of wondering, is the site actually, you know, being scrutinised and having the health and safety checkups that it needs? And the second thing that's my concern is the fact that the safety of the site and the health and safety will be monitored by the environmental health team at Stafford Borough Council rather than the Environment Agency. My main concern with this is the fact that I know the environmental health team at Stafford Borough Council are understaffed and they already struggle with safety concerns in the wider Stafford Borough area. And therefore, are they going to be able to truly scrutinise and do the checkups that would be necessary to ensure the health and safety of residents and school users? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any further comments from the members? Can we have the recommendation from the caseworker, please? So back up on the screen.
I would ask first if there's a member.
Can I ask, please, is there a member who would like to move the recommendation, which is shown on the screen? Can I have a show of hands?
Seconded.
And a seconder? Thank you very much. So I'll now read the recommendation. The recommendation is that members confirm that had the County Council been able to determine the application, planning permission would have been refused for the following reasons, and those are shown on the screen. So if you are in favour of this recommendation, please raise your hand. This is to refuse the application. That's unanimous. There's no need to ask against or abstentions. That is an unanimous decision to refuse the application. So before we go any further, we're going to have an adjournment. So we'll be taking a short break for approximately 5 minutes. We'll then resume the meeting with the remainder of the items. For those watching online, I'd like to say thank you very much for coming and showing support. It's lovely to see so many people taking an active part, and our esteemed guests as well. So the webcast will now be paused to give you time to leave. So welcome back after that short adjournment. I'd just like to remind everyone that we are being webcast. So we go on to the next application, which is by Tarmac Trading Limited and Cemex UK Limited at Hints Quarry, Watling Street, Tamworth. And it's a request for an application for a proposed extension to extraction area and consolidation with planning permission, including retention of site access plant site. So do we have any speakers? Sorry, over to the case officer, sorry, Matthew.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning to everybody. As the Chairman says, this report relates to a planning application submitted by Tarmac Trading Limited and Cemex UK Operations Limited, and they're seeking permission to win and work additional sand and gravel in conjunction with remaining permitted reserves at Hints Quarry, which is within the Lichfield district. The proposal is reported to the Planning Committee on the basis that it is viewed as a significant extension to a quarry. So the general location is such that the application site of about 99 hectares is located 4 kilometres west of Tamworth and 6 kilometres southeast of Lichfield. The proposed extension involves unworked land within the current permitted area of the quarry and an additional 4.2 hectares of mainly agricultural land. Access to the site is from the Watling Street. So the current permission, I know this is testing the eyesight, is the red line there, and that's the extension area. The access there to the quarry is off the Watling Street, which used to be an A road. It was the A5 before the bypass was built. So the actual access to the quarry is through an underpass on the A5, and then you've got access to the A5, or the old A5, and traffic is required to travel westwards because there's a traffic regulation order that prevents lorries going this way. The processing plant and stockpiling area are to the south of the extraction area. So currently extraction is in that part of the quarry there. The processing plant and the stockpiling area is all in that area. And the dashed purple line here on the left-hand side, that's sort of denotes the alignment of the HS2 railway, which is currently under construction. So this is an aerial view taken by a drone fairly recently, and is there to it's looking eastwards and shows the extent of the current extraction area, which is this area here. And in the foreground, there's agricultural land. As you can see, some of this is already within the red line of the permission on the basis that this is land required for recharging boreholes, which I'll go on to later on. The extent of the area to be quarried, or the proposed extent, is approximately shown with this blue area here. And in the middle of the photograph, you can see a green area there. That is a standoff from the quarry on the basis that there's 2 cottages in there. Those cottages are now disused, and this proposal involves the demolition of those cottages that are no longer required, and therefore this land, together with this farmland, would be the area that they wish to extend the quarrying into. The nearest residential properties are more than 500 metres distant from the proposed extraction, and obviously not shown on that photograph. So this is the drones hit the land, and this is a photograph taken from what would be the southern phase of the proposed extension looking northwards. The proposed extension, therefore, is sort of this land slightly up to where those trees in the middle ground are shown. The proposals are sort of summarised again on that slide. The proposal involves the extraction of about 1.4 million tonnes of sand and gravel, which would be in addition to the 1.5 million tonnes of sand and gravel that remains as permitted reserve. Output would be up to 1 million tonnes per annum, although it's anticipated that the typical rate of extraction would be 500,000 to 600,000 tonnes per annum. Based on those typical rates, rather than the maximum output, it's anticipated that extractive operations could continue for around 6 years, so that's up to the end of 2031. The proposed after uses that are planned are for nature conservation in the form of heathland, acid grassland and woodland. The proposed scheme also provides for the reinstatement of agricultural land and public rights of way. Restoration works are proposed to be completed by the end of 2033. Currently, the restoration is required by October 2027. The proposed mineral extraction relates to the final area of sand and gravel resource to be extracted at Hint's Quarry, bearing in mind this quarry's been around since the 1960s. The reason why this is likely to be the last sort of area to be worked is because there's a geological fault that exists to the west of the proposed extension, and that results in the sand and gravel deposits being too deep to recover on a commercially feasible basis. The slide here is the proposed phasing with the extension included. It's proposed to extract the remaining reserves, including the extension area, on a phase basis. The current phasing boundaries will be adjusted to include the proposed western extension. The depth of extraction within the sand and gravel deposit would be restricted to a maximum depth of 5.7 metres below mean groundwater level, rather than to the fullest extent of the base of the sand and gravel deposit. As mentioned earlier, pumping of groundwater encountered in the workings would continue, so that some of the water would be pumped back to existing boreholes, and maybe another borehole that would be required to recharge the aquifer. This is a requirement of the Environment Agency and ensures that the groundwater levels in the aquifer are not adversely affected. Another thing to note on that slide is the green dash line there running down the outside of what would be a soil bund created to screen the workings. That would be the proposed diversion of an existing, or the route of a diversion of an existing bridleway. This is an extract from the restoration plan, the concept plan, and shows that most of the proposed extension there is in the olive green, which is an area which is to be formed into heathland, and the excavations would be restored in accordance with current methods, which involve placing quite an extensive rock sand overburden, placing that back into the workings to recreate an acceptable landform. The topographical variation of the restored landform is intended to be consistent with the variation that you would see, say, on Cannock Chase in terms of the changes on levels on those slopes. And then regarding biodiversity net gain, The proposed restoration scheme is intended to deliver an overall 24% gain, which is obviously much greater than the mandatory 10%, as well as enhancements in terms of linear habitats such as native hedgerows and drains. So in terms of the consultation and representations received in relation to the application, there are no objections from any of the technical consultees, but as considered in the observation section of the report to this committee, concerns have been raised about progress with restoration within parts of the quarry, and objections have been received from residents as also considered in the observations. So going through the key issues as listed on that slide, the first section of the observations in the report relates to the justification of the proposed development in terms of need for the sand and gravel, which is a construction aggregate. In particular, the report considers whether the proposal accords with Policy 1 of the Minerals Local Plan, which sets out the way in which provision for sand and gravel should be achieved in the county over the period up to the end of 2030. The proposed extension area includes land that has been allocated in the Minerals Local Plan, so the principle for the development of that part of the quarry is already accepted. But there is also a need to consider the principle of developing land outside the allocation with reference to the requirements of Policy 1.6 of the Minerals Local Plan. This means that significant material benefits need to be demonstrated. In this case, the maintenance and production capacity from an established quarry, as well as the efficient recovery of important mineral resources, thereby avoiding sterilisation of that resource, are accepted as benefits, so that the proposal is considered to accord with that Policy 1.6. In relation to that part of the mineral found within the land allocated in the Minerals Local Plan, the report considers the requirement for the proposals to demonstrate that they address what are called development considerations as listed in for the allocation in the plan. The report concludes that following an assessment of those considerations, that the application satisfactorily addresses those considerations associated with the Hints Quarry allocation, subject to appropriate mitigation to be secured by the recommended conditions and terms of the Section 106 agreement. The third issue to be considered relates to whether the proposal accords with policy for the protection of the Greenbelt. Having considered the method of working and its effect on the openness of the Greenbelt, it is concluded that the ongoing proposed mineral and restoration operations are not inappropriate in the Greenbelt. Then, considering the key concerns of Swinfen and Packington Parish Council and of the residents that objected, we have considered the progress with quarry restoration, traffic impact and community liaison. In consideration of the concerns raised about restoration progress, the report concludes that there is no reason to suggest that the applicants are not complying with the requirements of planning conditions for reinstatement of the land. It is also noted that if permission is granted, a review of the currently approved restoration and aftercare scheme would be required to ensure that details for the proposed extension are agreed and that the restoration requirements of the current permitted areas remain viable and will achieve a high quality in accordance with Policy 6 of the Minerals Local Plan. Regarding objections to the proposal based on grounds of traffic impact, the report considers concerns about lorry speeds and cumulative traffic impact resulting from the HS2 construction works. Based on comments received from National Highways and the Local Highway Authority, the report concludes that the proposals would not give rise to any unacceptable adverse impacts in terms of highway safety. Regarding concerns about the arrangements for the Quarries Liaison Committee, the report notes that there is scope within the Liaison Committee's current constitution to invite up to 2 other people with the discretion of that committee's chairperson, which could include additional representatives from the objectors' community. The application involves the proposed extension of the quarry and consolidation with the current permission. The report explains that it is recommended that existing conditions are updated and new conditions are added to minimise the impact of mineral development and to ensure the quarry continues to operate to high environmental standards as well as to achieve high quality restoration. The final section of the observations considers those matters that need to be addressed by undertakings within a Section 106 legal agreement rather than by planning condition. Undertakings are proposed to require the developer to continue the requirement of extended aftercare for those parts already subject to an existing legal agreement, to provide a restoration guarantee, for HGV movements to comply with the requirements of an existing approved mineral transport plan, to require non-implementation of existing planning permissions as updated, thereby ensuring that the development proceeds in accordance with the recommended conditions as listed in the report. And finally, to require a contribution to cover the monitoring requirements of the habitat management that will be required as part of the mandatory biodiversity gain plan required for the proposed extension area. Finally, the recommendation, as you can see, is to permit, subject to the applicant first completing a Section 106 agreement to secure the terms listed in the report and to the imposition of conditions as outlined in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from members? Yes, Councillor Parton.
At all, but can we have the answers? How far along is the restoration to the other parts of the site? Is it a time limit to when it should be done? And would the land in question be returned back to farmland? And how many trees are being affected by the proposed demolition and around the houses? How many trees will be affected?
Thank you very much. I'll go back to the case officer, Matthew.
Yes, thank you. So in terms of timescales, as I mentioned in the presentation, the sort of the final completion it will be further into the future because there's more mineral to be worked out if this is allowed to go ahead. But bear in mind that there is a progressive restoration. So some parts of the quarry are already restored, and that was the consideration in dealing with the comments from the parish council, in the sense that they wanted to inquire about progress and making sure that that was all on board. So the method of extraction allows for progressive backfilling. So therefore, soil, once the rock sand's put in place, they can put the soils back, and those parts of the site that can be restored. In terms of farming, I know there's a lot of emphasis and focus on biodiversity net gain and because of the statutory requirements now, and also the fact that there's a national policy to encourage increased biodiversity. So that's obviously a key thing that mineral developments can achieve anyway. But it's also an important part of the proposals that agricultural land, bearing in mind there's good soil here, that land is restored, and that there's a legacy of returning the farmland as well. And then in terms of trees, I think one of those photographs I showed indicated that there might be a hedge line to be taken out, but importantly, I mean, as part of the biodiversity net gain, there's replacement involved, and probably there's enhancement of what you see there in terms of the hedge line that would be removed. So the trees that are pointed out in terms of being the limit of the working area, they're sort of, there's a standoff from those. Those trees would be protected. The trees around the cottages, they're trees which would be the sort of trees that wouldn't count for much in terms of biodiversity benefits anyway, because they're sort of evergreen trees that you know, have been planted as part of a garden, but they're not sort of native. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Jack.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so my kind of question was regarding the fact that the applicant has stated that obviously the aggregate's being used for HS2 progress. But obviously with much of HS2 now being abandoned, I was just wondering how the communication between, you know, HS2 Limited and the applicant has actually been in terms of how much more aggregate and resources are going to need, or is it likely that the resources will probably end up going to another kind of business rather than HS2? And the other thing is there's not much information in there about the actual cottages themselves, of, you know, the size, how many bedrooms they are, how old they are, whether they actually have like a historical value, and the kind of, you know, the loss of history essentially. Thank you.
Did you want to answer that, Matthew?
So in terms of market for the material, I mean, Tarmac have contracts very specifically on a section of the HS2 construction that is underway, and I think in the report it refers to the fact that they utilising another quarry which is up the A38 to provide that demand or to fulfil that demand. Hints is there in the background to sort of cover for production if that's required, but then Hints is also there to sort of cover for the markets that Orwas can't fulfil because it's been utilised for HS2. And so potentially Tarmac want the flexibility to be able to fulfil those requirements if I mean, because as you know, the construction programme for HS2 is not as certain as it might have seemed a few years ago, but obviously there's potential there with the quarries to fulfil that demand from an existing established site. But what I would say is the fact that Hints, the location of Hints is ideal for the West Midlands conurbation, and as you may already appreciate, sand and gravel, there's obviously a big market for it within the county, but also, you know, the conurbation can't provide its own construction aggregate, so it fulfills sort of markets that are there in terms of concrete and mortar and all the rest of it, you know, in the West Midlands as well as in Staffordshire. So there's clearly a demand, and as I say, the typical demand may be more around 500 to 600,000 tonnes, which is not an inconsiderable amount for a quarry of this type. But and then the second point is you raise is about the cottages. So we have an environmental advice team which incorporates expertise in terms of ecology, landscape, and people who will be concerned about the historic environment. And their response is such that there's no objection to the proposal, but in relation to the cottages, they have requested that before any demolition takes place, A, they check for bats, and B, they also do a historical record of, so there's a record of the dwellings which sort of date back to the 19th century, late 19th century, I believe. You know, there's that's what they require. It's not one where they want to sort of say, you know, that this should stop and not include the. There's no reason to sort of protect the buildings itself for its historic value. Yeah.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, or do you want another one?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I just want it to be noted that the kind of the concern around the HS2 contract is I understand that these materials are going to be used regardless of whether it's used for HS2 or not. My concern is the fact that they're mentioning this specifically, whereas I think it should be it should be noted that they could potentially, you know, include the fact that, oh, if HS2 isn't needed for this, we have got other kind of businesses and other infrastructure that it will be used for. That's the only kind of point I was making on that. I'm not saying that sand and stone isn't going to be required at all. But yeah, and so again, if we kind of do vote on this today, what is the kind of the process if, you know, bats are discovered in the houses, for etc.? How long will that delay the kind of the process, and what's the process of making sure that they're, you know, treated correctly?
Did you want to say something, Matthew?
Probably not, actually. But I mean, I think the point being that as an established, well, I'm only repeating what I've said, to be honest, but yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Rose, is that satisfied? Do we have any other questions from members? Yes, Councillor Lakin.
It's a recommendation, really, rather than or a request, sorry, rather than a question. When you're presenting plans such as this, is there a possibility of having a Google map of the area, you know, or even a live map of the area, so it puts it into context, so we can actually see what is there now, rather than an ordnance survey map?
Yeah, I think that's something that was a practice before. We've perhaps sort of need to get back into it. And another practice that we're trying to sort of develop with the cooperation of applicants is the fact that I think a picture from the air always helps, but I appreciate the Google view is probably, you know, better in terms of providing that context. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Lakin. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question. I just wanted to say well done, Mike, again, for a really comprehensive report. And the recommendations will certainly get my support, especially with the heads of terms and the conditions that you've outlined. It's very well thought out and well done.
Well, thank you very much for that accolade, salutation. But the officers do a lot of the work. They're so dedicated. So yes, we're all indebted to them. Are there any other questions from the members? Right, so we need to take a vote. So the recommendation is to permit the proposed development for the extension to the extraction area and the consolidation with the planning permission. We'll take a vote now.
Someone has to move it and second it.
Beg your pardon. So can I have someone to move? Thank you very much, Councillor. And someone to second? Thank you very much indeed. So now we can take a vote. So all those in favour of the permit, or the recommendation, please say aye. Any? That's unanimous again. Thank you very much. So we'll just give councillors just a couple of minutes for a comfort break. Okay, so now moving on to item 4C, the application by Geocycle UK Limited at Cauldon Cement Works, Earlsway, Staffordshire. So over to the case officer, over to you, Isabel.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. This is an application by Geocycle UK Limited to vary conditions of an existing planning permission which relates to the existing alternative fuels facility and fuel storage and feed system, which is ancillary to the Cauldon Cement Works. The application proposes to revise the feedstock mix for the alternative fuel facility from the permitted 68% solid fuels and 32% liquid fuels to 100% solid fuels. Ancillary development is proposed to facilitate the importation and storage of wholly solid fuels. General location. The application site is shown edged on red on the location plan, which is here. The photograph shows the cement works to the left of the photograph and the alternative fuels facility to the right. The storage hall is for the fuel facility is the green building, which is over here. The site is located between the villages of Cauldon and Waterhouses in the district of Staffordshire Moorlands, approximately 11 kilometres to the northwest of Ashbourne and approximately 10 kilometres southeast of Leek. So Cauldon's up here and Waterhouses is around here. Access to the site is from the junction of Earlsway and Earlsway Lane, approximately 950 metres south of the A523. The fuels facility is located to the east of Cauldon Cement Works and the east of Earlsway. The manufacturer of cement requires both limestone and shale. The Cauldon limestone quarry is to the south of the main cement work site via a link conveyor, which can be seen behind the trees. The Cauldon shale quarry is to the northwest of the works. A separate limestone quarry, Cauldon Low Quarry, is to the west of the Cauldon limestone quarry. At its closest point, the site is located approximately 700 metres south of the Peak District National Park. Site location. The plan shows the current situation on the alternative fuel facility site. Planning permission was granted for the alternative fuel facility for firing kilns at Cauldon Cement Works in 2020, and the buildings and infrastructure relating to solid fuels were constructed and are operational. The plan shows the existing storage hall and conveyor over Earlsway to the cement works. Other infrastructure shown on the plan includes the existing substation, existing fire water pump station and fire water tank, in addition to the weighbridge and cabins at the site access. The photograph shows the entrance to the alternative fuels facility on the right. The proposal. When the alternative fuel facility was permitted in December 2020, it was proposed that the kilns at Cauldon Cement Works would be fired using solid fuels and liquid fuels. The planning permission set out how much solid fuels and liquid fuels are permitted to be imported to the facility. As the permitted infrastructure relating to liquid fuels has, however, not been implemented, and the applicant no longer proposes to proceed with construction that infrastructure, planning permission is now sought to vary planning conditions on the planning permission to remove the liquid fuel element. The application proposes to update the approved layout to reflect solid fuel only. It is also proposed to revise permitted feedstock mix from 68% solid fuels and 32% liquid fuels to 100% solid fuels. For information, the solid fuels include non-recyclable soft plastics, such as crisp packets, and high calorific plastics that would otherwise end up in landfills. To accommodate the proportionate increase in solid fuels, and the application proposes an extension to the existing storage hall, in addition to a new sorting hall, and a second over-road pipeline from the facility to the cement works. Whilst there is no change to the proposed total quality of feedstock, which is 125,000 tonnes per annum, or no change proposed to the operating hours or hours for deliveries of feedstock, the proportionate increase in solid fuels means that there will be an increase in one vehicle load per full working day. Vehicle loads will therefore increase from a total of 21 to only 22 HGV loads per full working day as a result of the proposal. There are 34 existing planning conditions on the planning permission which control the development in respect to the general environmental protection. As a result of the proposed development, it has been necessary to review and update the 34 conditions. Proposed site plan. This slide shows the proposed site plan and the proposed development as shown here, outlined in blue. The extension storage hall is labelled as the existing SRF building, which is this building here. The building will be used to sort imported solid fuels into high and low calorific values. External finished materials for buildings are proposed to match existing buildings. The proposed second over road link pipeline is shown parallel to the existing conveyor, which is the blue line over here. The proposed pipeline will feed high calorific value materials direct to the cement works. The existing conveyor would transfer lower calorific value material. Consultations and representations. No objections have been received from technical statutory consultees. The County Council's Environmental Advice Team has, however, recommended 2 conditions in relation to tree protection and landscaping. The Planning Regulation Team also recommended a condition in relation to litter control. The Environment Agency has also advised that a permit variation application will be required. No representations have been received from local residents. Consultations continued. Waterhouses Parish Council have a holding objection to the proposal on the basis that greater volumes of solid waste as fuel for the cement works may exacerbate the frequency of litter, such as plastic waste and fine materials escaping from the existing conveyor system into the surrounding environment. The photographs on this slide show the existing enclosed conveyor, which feeds solid recovered fuels from the facility over Earlsway to the cement works. The slide also shows photographs of plastic debris on the ground below the conveyor as provided by the Parish Council. Key issues. The observation section of the report from pages 143 to 149 consider the key issues. It is reasonable to conclude that there have been no material changes to the site surroundings or in terms of the development plan and other material planning policy considerations. This slide, however, sets out the site-specific considerations. Waterhouses Parish Council maintain their objection to the proposed development until such time it can be demonstrated that the conveyor system is functioning in compliance with the original planning permission and environmental permit, i.e. not releasing plastic into the surrounding environment. If members are minded to grant planning permission, the Parish Council request a condition to require immediate cessation of operations until the source of litter is established. In response to the Parish Council's concerns, the operator has provided information regarding the investigations carried out and the remedial works that have been undertaken as part of the conveyor system most at risk of spillage. The applicant's agent has explained that solid recovered fuels contain lots of shredded plastic, which include things like fragments of crisp packets. Although the conveyor is enclosed, there must be very narrow gaps where sections of the encased cladding meet through, which is possible for very thin fragments of plastic to escape when wind speeds are high enough. Recommendation. It is reasonable to conclude that there have been no material changes to the site surroundings or in terms of the development plan and other material planning policy considerations. Also subject to the conditions recommended in the report in pages 150 to 155, the proposed development would not give rise to any material harmful impacts that should prevent the variation of condition to revise the feedstock mix from the permitted 68% solid and 32% liquid to 100% solid fuel. It is considered that the proposed development is considered acceptable and would not result in a fundamental change to the extant permission. It is, however, reasonable and necessary to recommend updates to the existing conditions, recommend 2 new conditions and recommend updates to existing informatives. The recommendation is therefore to permit the proposed development to not comply with vary planning conditions 189/1922 planning permission SM.19/10/111 MW to revise the feedstock mix from the permitted 68% solid and 32% liquid to 100% solid fuels, and ancillary development to facilitate the importation of wholly solid fuels at the fuel storage facility and feed system subject to conditions and informatives listed in the report from pages 150 to 155. Thank you, Chairman. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Do we have any questions from members? Yes.
We got some speakers, Chair.
Yeah.
Speakers.
Right, do beg your pardon.
So I'm just going to admit the first speaker, Chris, now. Is that okay?
Okay.
Chris, thank you for your patience there, holding online.
Good morning.
Let us know, yeah, if you're there. Thank you.
So we have a speaker for this, Chris Hinton. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, yeah.
We can see you now as well.
Okay.
I believe there's 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. Do I go ahead now? Yes? Okay. So I hope you can hear this okay. So the Parish Council of Waterhouses notes the intention of the current application is to improve the viability of the plant, following the company's statement that the liquid waste element in the fuel mix is no longer viable. The Parish Council has at all times been happy to accept alterations and improvements to the plant which result in the continuing viability for the operation, providing always that the company promptly and effectively addresses issues of pollution which negatively affects the parish, its community and the surrounding environment. This has not been the case with the existing conveyor system. There have been repeated escapes of plastic waste under certain atmospheric conditions, mainly high winds, which have resulted in fine particles and materials escaping into the surrounding environment. The company has responded by carrying out clean-up operations. However, this cannot be 100% effective and certainly does not address the issue of material being washed into the highway drainage system and other water courses. The members of the Parish Council were pleased to receive from Jonathan Davies the results of his investigation into the source of the leaks of waste materials, together with proposals for addressing these. It is noted that the existing conveyor system is to be retained under the proposals for the expanded plant, with an additional pipeline feed for higher calorific value material. It is further noted that the current system has failed to meet its target reductions in carbon emissions. The Parish Council therefore objects to the proposal to extend the capacity of the solid fuel storage until such time as it can be demonstrated that the conveyor system is functioning in compliance with the original consent of the operating licence, i.e. not releasing plastic into the surrounding environment. Increases in volumes of material stored and used without properly addressing this issue would logically lead to increased pollution volumes. If the planning authority is minded to grant the consent, irrespective of the above considerations, then conditions should be imposed which require immediate cessation of operations until the source of the leaks is established and fully rectified. That's the end of what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Chris Hinton. Do we have a second?
We do, thank you, Chair.
Contributor?
Yes, I'm just adding Joel Jessup to... Thank you for your patience, Joel. Feel free to start your speech when you're ready.
Can you hear us, Joel?
Thank you. Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, you have 5 minutes. Are you ready?
Ready.
Go on.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant, who successfully established the alternative fuels facility at Cauldon Cement Plant, which was granted planning permission by this committee in December 2020. The fuels facility is now operational and has already facilitated the reduction of carbon emissions from the cement plant, not to mention diverting thousands of tonnes of waste from landfill to instead be used for a positive purpose in cement production at a nationally important plant. For context, prior to the development of the alternative fuels facility, the cement plant largely relied on imported coal and shredded motor vehicle tyres for fuel. The 2020 permission enabled the site to receive and utilise 125,000 tonnes per annum of alternative fuels instead, comprising a combination of solids and liquids. The elements of the site designed to receive and feed solid fuels to the cement plant are now operational. The elements of the permission designed for liquid fuels, including a pipeline above Earlsway, were never built. This is because in the years since permission was granted, liquid fuels have become undesirable. Therefore, the application does not propose to increase the overall tonnage of waste imported and fed to the cement plant from the fuels facility. Instead, it proposes to change the proportion of solid and liquid fuels from a combination of both to 100% solids. To improve environmental performance and efficiency, the application includes the installation of an additional feed from the fuel site to the cement plant in the form of a sealed pipe with a maximum diameter of 30 centimetres. This would enable the separation of solid fuels into those with higher and lower calorific values, enabling the feed of materials with different calorific values directly into parts of the cement plant where they can be used much more efficiently than if all types of solid fuels were fed into the same location. I'm pleased to note this application has had no registered neighbour objections, nor any objections from any statutory technical consultees. Regrettably, as has been pointed out, the site had an operational issue relating to the escape of some small plastic fragments from the existing conveyor feed over Earlsway. To summarise, the conveyor was installed in accordance with the manufacturer's specification. However, rubber seals had become worn long before their expected lifespan, resulting in some material escaping the conveyor when wind speeds were high enough. Remedial work has been carried out by the applicant and the issue has been resolved. Frequent monitoring and maintenance is taking place with the intention of ensuring that the issue does not arise again in the future. I must stress that the issue of plastic escaping the conveyor was an operational matter relating to existing infrastructure rather than a planning matter related to the development proposed in this application. So in summary, the proposal before you would significantly improve the efficiency and environmental performance of Cauldon cement plant. And as established within the officer's report, the proposal is in accordance with the development plan. I thank the case officer for preparing a well-balanced, informative report and respectfully ask the committee to support your officer's recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission. Do we have any?
No, that's everyone. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, do we have any comments from the members? Yes, Councillor Parton.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that, just an observation, that a team be set up to monitor all the escaped plastic and patrol every so often around the site, just in case that there is another escape. Thank you.
Yes, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you, Chair. To answer your question, the operator actually takes out daily inspections underneath the conveyor, carries vacuum machinery to collect litter from outside the site boundaries. The site is monitored by the Environment Agency. There is a permit for the site, so the responsibility for that is the Environment Agency. They've commented that they're satisfied with the response from the operator in respect of the escaping plastics. As the applicant's agent has said, rubber seals have been replaced. If we go, I was going to ask if we could have the presentation back up. I wanted to show the slide that shows the issue with the conveyor. If you can go back. Yeah, so there's an image there that shows that the rubber seals that had to be replaced. So as the agent has said, I think the manufacturer's guidance was for replacing them every 2 years. They've replaced the seals and they propose to replace them more frequently, annually. And the regulation team, they also monitor any complaints at the site. So we have the Environment Agency looking at the site in terms of permit control. We also have the regulation, the County Council's planning regulation team also respond to breaches of conditions and complaints. And the regulation team said that they were aware of the complaints. They received one complaint back in April in respect of the plastic. They're satisfied with the response of the operator, as is the Environment Agency. The Planning Regulation team, they note that this is existing infrastructure that's already got planning permission. However, to have one added control, they've recommended a condition which has been accepted by the applicant that we could put on any new planning permission, requiring that no material should be deposited outside the site boundary. So the parish council have said, you know, they want a condition. They've requested an additional condition, and have suggested requiring immediate cessation of operations if considered necessary. The regulation team has said we can put a condition on any planning permission that they would monitor and they would enforce, but regulation would have more options. So in addition to requiring immediate cessation of the operations if considered necessary, they could alternatively require other steps to achieve compliance. So we've looked at, and the operator is looked at the issues, and like we say, the if it's the wearing of those seals that are shown on that slide that are highlighted in red, the operator is already addressing that. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Does that answer your
Thank you
question?
very much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Councillor Rose and then Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, it was a question to the parish council. So obviously the applicant has said that they've done these remedial works to kind of improve the rubber seals. Has the parish council actually seen a marked improvement with the litter that's being, well, escaping essentially? Have they actually seen this marked improvement already, or is this consideration of immediate cessation of activities until it's rectified? Is that something that should be more considered?
So that's a question for the supporter to the application. Yes. Can we go back to Joel? Sorry, the parish councillor.
He is still there. He's muted and not my camera's off.
Is Chris Hinton still there, please?
He's on mute.
Chris, if you're there, you need to unmute yourself.
Is that better?
Oh, now we can hear you. What about your camera?
Yeah.
I can see you now. So we have a question here from Councillor Rose. Did you hear what he said?
I did, yeah. It's difficult to determine the current state of any rectifications because the issues of the plastic particles appearing coincide, as stated, largely with high winds, and they haven't been experienced particularly since the early part of this year. So it's difficult to address that, though I note the comments made by the speaker who spoke after me about what's been done and so forth. So they've said at all times the council has no wish to interrupt the operation of the plant, which is important to the parish, but equally important are environmental issues. So it's difficult for the council to be, were they here now in my place, for them to be able to say whether the problem is or isn't solved. It could possibly be argued in good faith that the work has been successful, but the council just wants to ensure, safeguard that the future, that those emissions of plastic into the local environment aren't repeated. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much for that. Over to you.
Could I just remind councillors that the issue is with the existing conveyor that's already got planning permission. The proposal that's before you, the new elements, if you didn't go with the officer's recommendation, there would be no additional controls over what has happened, and the application in front of you is to the additional overroad pipeline to the cement plant is a pipeline, isn't a conveyor. The Environment Agency and the Planning Regulation team are satisfied with what the applicant, the operator, the measures, the remedial measures that have been undertaken. This application gives you the opportunity to add on an additional condition that can be enforced by the planning regulation team that specifically relates to the control of litter outside the site boundary. So by supporting the proposal, you're adding in an extra measure that can be enforced by the County Council's planning regulation team. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's to embellish what's already there to increase the application. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answers my question. Obviously, the point I was coming from is obviously if they're moving towards a more solid fuel system, then regardless of what the infrastructure already is, there's going to be an increase in the actual amount of material moving through the conveyor belt. So therefore, I do think it's pertinent to ask the questions of whether the current systems are working as they should do, because obviously if you're going to have more material, yes, the actual weight is the same, but material of that kind is going to be increased. So that's why I was asking that question.
Just to respond to Councillor Rose, so the Environment Agency, as I've said, they control the permit, they control the pollution control, they've considered the application, they've got no objections. The throughput, the 125,000 tonnes per annum, that's unchanged. We've removed the liquid element. They've looked at the measures, that's the remedial measures, they're satisfied. They can still take action through the permit process, so they would be regulating pollution control, and the planning regulation team from the County Council would also be responding to any complaints. They've only received the one complaint about litter control, so when you've asked, has the measures, have we received any complaints since? We haven't. The County Council has not received any further complaints. The one complaint back in April, which was the photographs that were supplied by the Parish Council back in April. Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Oh yes, Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, I just think in the light of how we now understand what happens to plastic when you bury it in a landfill, what with all the microplastics leaching into the water, and how we have to treat them with the ones that leachate that we do actually get to extract. I think the applicant should be commended for burning this plastic. Every tonne that they burn is a tonne that we don't have to bury. And also, as far as I can see from the application, 30,000 tonnes of CO2 are going to not be released into the atmosphere due to changing to this method of heating the stone to make into concrete, so or cement rather. So I'm in agreement with the application, and I think it's a very good thing.
Thank you very much for your comments. Does anybody else like to say anything? Yes, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. And I agree with my previous colleague that I was going to say that, so well done. Yeah, marvellous, thank you. No, that's tremendous. My comment would be that I noted that the internal environmental advice team have noted that the loss of green space and with regard to the tree protection measures required, so I really would like some sort of comment on that. But I have noted that the Natural England and the Peak District National Park Authority and Staff Smalllands District Council, they're not objecting, and neither do we have representatives from neighbours. So, but I would like some comment on trees, please. Thank you.
Would you like to comment on that, Julie?
Yeah, thank you. So, because this is an application to vary the existing conditions on an existing permission. So what the case office has done is reviewed all the 34 existing planning conditions, and one of them already relates to landscaping. And so the recommendation we've put in the report, there's the heads of terms for the conditions, how they need to be amended. And one of the conditions is to require the submission of details from the applicant to review the existing landscaping scheme and to update that scheme. In addition to that, we've the report recommends 2 new conditions. So one of the new conditions, so in addition to the existing 34, one of the new conditions is in respect of the litter control, to control the plastics issue. And the other condition is tree protection. So when the additional extension of the building and the sorting hall are constructed, to protect existing trees on site. So the recommendations, you're quite right, there's been no objections from statutory consultees. It's the environmental advice team recommended the 2 conditions which are addressed in the report, and they form an update of one existing condition and a new condition, and then the additional condition from the regulation team for litter controls also recommended. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions, please? Yes, Councillor Lakin.
I hope this complies with... Historically, as I understand it, to produce cement, you burn rock, and coal and gas were the main combustants that we used. And we've now gone to the burning of plastics, which are predominantly produced from oil, or part of the oil process, which is a little bit of a causes me a little bit of concern when we've got people who want to stop oil being produced. The conveyor belt, or additional conveyor belt, or the use of the conveyor belts is the issue. If there were no conveyor belts, because of moving to burning these, or to heating, sorry, the rocks using green energy, we wouldn't need the conveyor belts. So is there a proposal going forward by the company to try and utilise green energy? And if not, why not? Is there an answer there? Potentially by using green energy, that would reduce litter, reduce the footprint of the site, because there'd be no storage facilities for the plastics, there would be no conveying of the plastics. Downside is, what happens to those plastics? So if there is a forward plan that we can know about, great. If it's not financially viable, because green energy cannot be used, because it's just not financially viable to burn rock using green energy, if they can give us any information on that, and if there's any plans in the future to turn to green energy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do we have someone who'd like to answer that?
If I answer part of it first, and then I'll ask the chair if he could pose the question to the applicant's agent. But the facilities got planning permission. It was granted planning permission by this council back in December 2020. So and that was moving away from burning coal and shredded tyres and going to waste-derived liquid fuels or solid recovered fuels, that the solid recovered fuels, which would otherwise have ended up in landfill, was considered obviously a better solution than coal and shredded tyres. But the application in front of you is just looking at a variation of that existing planning permission. That's what we're here to consider. As regard future proposals of the applicant, then I don't know that, and we can't comment on that. We're just looking purely at the merits of this planning application. So I'd ask the chair to ask the applicant's agent if he wanted to comment on green energy. Thank you.
Okay, Joe, can we bring up the agent, Joel Jessup again? Did you hear the question, Joel?
I did, yes. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Would you like to comment on that?
I could try, but without disappointing, I'm just the agent for this application before you today. I don't know about the company's wider green energy proposals. All I would say is that to heat the kilns at the cement plant, there's a an exceptionally high temperature required, and I've left it up to the technicians and the engineers and people that know much better than I do about the best way to heat those kilns, and this is what they've settled upon as a balance of environmentally acceptable and a scheme that fits the requirements of those kilns. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you for taking the question. Councillor, do you want to make any comments on that?
Yeah, I think he has answered my question, which is that green energy isn't necessarily the answer, and the process that's in place at the moment is the best of the worst answers, if that makes sense. So thank you. Yes.
Yeah, just to add, my knowledge of it is that there's a huge amount of energy that's needed to make cement, and it's needed for construction. So do we have any other questions? So can I have someone to... Oh, can we bring the recommendation back up on the screen, please, Joe? Oh, can you just go back a bit? There we go. So, so the recommendation is to permit the proposed development. Do we have someone to move the recommendation? Thank you very much, Councillor Beardmore. And someone to second it? Councillor Purton. Thank you. Can we all have show of hands, all those in favour of the recommendation? That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to the speakers, Chris Hinton and Joel Jessup. We can now let you go. And it's just to say there are no private items on the agenda, so that concludes today's meeting. Thank you very much for coming and being part of the meeting today, and thank you very much for all the officers for all their commitment and time. That brings the meeting to the end. Thank you.
Thank you.